Welcome back to Faith in Pieces, where we build our faith together, piece by piece, story by story. We're continuing season 4 with the question, where does the church get it wrong? Some may say by letting us two be in charge of this podcast.
Fair point.
This week, we are tackling preservation versus transformation and the things that we may be holding too sacred. Subjective warning, some of this are our opinions. And if you would like to tell us where Erik is wrong, you can leave a comment.
Perfect.
Engagement is good. So, in this week's sermon, Schuller began by naming why traditions matter. They ground us, they connect us to people and memories. In the church, they link us to practices that have shaped the Christian community for generations. Worship, prayer, scripture, fellowship, and the breaking of bread. It makes sense to hold tightly to some of these traditions, especially when they have helped shape us and helped us encounter God or feel at home in the church. But the problem comes when we become more committed to preserving the way things have been than being open to how God may be reshaping us now. As Schuller put it in his sermon, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm going to pronounce this guy's name right. Haslov Pelikan, quote, "The tradition is the living faith of the dead, and traditionalism is the dead faith of the living." So, Erik, why are traditions so meaningful, both to us personally and the church?
Yeah. So, personally, traditions are very grounding. Like, it's a thing that you can have in the rhythm of your life through your year. If you do, like at our house, we do half birthdays. And so usually, it's root beer floats. It's just a way to acknowledge. Now, that's not going to change anyone's year or day, but it's a cool tradition. It's grounding. It's comforting. It's neat. And then, in January, when we recognize my brother's passing, we have a different set of traditions. And it's a way that we honor someone that we love and we miss. And so there's no point in the year where I would choose to eat Twizzlers or frozen pizza or Big Red. But these are things he loved. And so we do that and we watch Star Wars because that's a thing that we did together. And so there's nostalgia in there, but it's also a way to hold on to memories that are meaningful and important, in a way to continue family traditions when family's not there. For us in the church, traditions can serve those same functions, but there's a practical element to it also, where when we have traditions in the church, it's a systematic way to share your faith. Because sometimes I think a scary word for us is evangelism. Is the idea that you've got to be able to tell your story. You have to be able to do this thing. And when we have traditions in the church, it takes some of that pressure off of us, right? We've got a built-in way for us to be able to share a thing that's important to us that we haven't had to create. And I think there's a sense of assurance in it, and I'm not trying to be morbid, but it's this idea that after we're gone, we want to make sure that these things that we love and that we've held on to are there for future generations. And so these traditions are ways that we can sit down with our kids and our grandkids and know that this is something permanent. This church isn't just something for me. This church is for the future as well. So traditions definitely got its place in our lives, in our church lives.
So what do you think the difference is between honoring these traditions and then and the difference between that and being ruled by traditionalism?
So for me, traditionalism is peer pressure from dead people. We've got these things that, sure, they may have happened before, and we attach a sense of agency and urgency to them because other people have too. We've got this inherited anxiety. And I understand how that can drive some of our decisions sometimes, but at the same time, it's just what is the function of this? Why are we doing this? There are good things that we have from passing on our traditions and knowing that our children are being formed well. It's a way for me as a parent to hold myself accountable am I living into what I've always said this tradition is? If I want my kids to do this too, if I want my kids to do this too, why on earth am I still doing it? And to me, that's a great barometer between tradition and traditionalism, is that forced evaluation of why. Like, why are we doing this thing? And sometimes it's just because we've always done that thing. But if you can name why, I think that's a great way to make that distinction between the two things. It's like, well, this is a living part of my current reality. And it's something that I recognize will be helpful for my child's future. And so, yeah, I think for me, that's a way that you can honor tradition, but have that gateway of closing out some of those traditionalism things that are maybe not as meaningful or helpful.
Yeah. My note here, you nailed it on the head. My note next to this question is our motivation matters.
Yeah.
Like us finding the why behind this is going to be a key indicator on whether it's tradition or traditionalism.
Sure.
Are there church traditions that you deeply value because they connect you to something essential?
Yeah, the primary driver for me, and we can recognize this if you've been with us in worship ever, because for me, it's the creeds, it's those affirmations, and one that is an inherited thing, um, and I definitely want to call it an inherited thing because it's not a scriptural thing.
Right.
Jesus didn't teach the disciples how to write creeds. Creeds are something that came up out of the structure of the church. And so for me, anything man-made is sort of instantly up for debate.
Sure.
But for me, what sets the creeds apart is it's this consensus, it's this agreement. It's like, here's our foundation. And if we can gather and we can affirm this thing, we can do whatever we want moving forward out of that thing. If we've got this bedrock, then worship can look like it needs to be, whatever your context is, whoever your people are. If we can all say yes to this, then everything else is good to go. And so for me, it ends up in that it's that blend of comfort and function, right? We have a thing that's reassuring to us, but it's got a job. It's not a dead thing. It's the launching point. It's this catalyst for everything then that we do. So when we pick music, regardless of style, does it line up with this ancient creedal faith that we have? When we do a mission trip, like, does it line up with this thing? It's just such, for me, a bedrock thing. And I think, other people might take it or leave it because other things might serve the function of the creeds for them. But for me, that's my launching point. That's kind of like a thing I know I can stand on, and we can work from there.
Why do you think change in the church often feels more threatening than change in other parts of our life?
I don't know. I concede that it does.
Yeah.
I don't have a rational answer for this, and I hate living in that spot, but I think it's like a thing that I need to confess. I think is how my brain works and not other people's. For me, so much of my faith tradition comes out of family tradition, and the things are intertwined. And so, particularly if your family has a home church, and in like a generational home church. And so for us, um, you know, my folks and my grandparents, my great grandparents are from small towns. So it wasn't like everyone went to different churches. And so, anytime someone got married or buried, it was in this one place. And you get so tied into not just the history of my community, but the history of my family is in this place. And when you start to treat that place as a vessel for your comfort and your nostalgia and memories, it's hard to change that thing because you get attached. But where I am now in my faith, it's more akin to tidying the house. I have this object. This object served me well, but I can get rid of this object and reduce the clutter I have here because it served its function.
Right.
And so, particularly now, with so much change that we've had in our lives, and we've got so much different distance between particular sanctuaries, and serving in different churches and being a guest in other churches and doing camps and seeing how many different places can be the sanctuary
Right.
and see the Spirit at work. For me now, some of those connections, the memories are still important, they're still there, but the place, like the things, the tangible objects no longer carry that same degree of weight for me. So I'm less anxious about carrying through a particular parament or a particular candlestick or this particular pew or why the carpet is this color. It's like, I've seen God at work. He's going to work wherever, through whatever. It's all going to be fine. But I think sometimes in church, like, but my grandma used this one.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's still like an awesome thing you can do at your house if you can. I've got tea towels that are, I don't know how many decades old, because like my great grandmother had this one. I remember this one.
Yeah.
But we can remember without having the object. Yeah. But I think we get attached. It's okay. It's natural.
Yeah. How do we tell whether we're protecting something sacred or simply protecting something familiar?
Yeah. I think this is a nuanced question for me. Because I think sometimes we ask whether or not, can we tell the difference? I think intuitively, we know the difference way more often than we think. It's just difficult. And I think that's what this question speaks to more, is that difficulty of when we recognize that we're protecting something that's familiar versus the sacred. But one of the things, I think I've used this phrase with the choir a lot, like, nobody's salvation is at risk over making this decision versus that one, or if we execute this well or don't. For me, there has to be this element of function. God came to earth to do stuff and not to build things. And so when I get down into why are we holding on to this, I always generally look at, and the term we use at our house is like, what's the win? That can seem a little clinical, I think, to someone who is attached to fill in the blank ministry or object or tradition. But I think it's a fair question to ask, is like, what is happening as the result of this other than just immobility? If a thing is got a concrete positive outcome for Christ, let's do it. If it doesn't, it's okay to do less work and just let the wins be wins and retire some of the stuff that doesn't serve the same function maybe that it used to.
Yeah. Curveball question before we move on. Outside of tea towels, is there anything that you hold on to at your house that you're just like, serves no real purpose, but you just can't let yourself let go of it? Because I know you, and I know like we both share, like we've talked about, like, we're both get rid of it people. Like we have no problem getting rid of it. But I have an answer to this. I'm curious if you do. Do you have something that you're like, it doesn't really, but I like it, so I keep it?
Well, mine's a category, it's not a thing.
Okay.
And this is obvious when you come into my house. But like, I've always been of the opinion that if it's books, it's not hoarding. I will get rid of things. I don't get rid of books. Books come in, they never leave again. And like, and there's books I've got stashed away, they're packed.
Yeah.
They've been packed for years.
Yeah.
Some of them are terrible books. I have books and books and books. And most other things, my wife bought me an absolutely ludicrous t-shirt once. It is huge. It's a big black t-shirt and it's bedazzled. Collar to waistband with a portrait of Yoda. I'm never leaving the house in that.
Yeah.
But that was just one of those, this is so unexpected.
Yeah.
And in flipping through the handful of clothes I do have in my closet and coming across that thing, like, this is wonderful. Like that is like this tradition serves no function, but I love seeing it right there, and knowing that it's there makes me
I'd
happy.
pay so much money to see that on a Sunday.
Never.
My answer is stadium cups.
Mm.
And Lauren is like, yes, let's just throw them away. And I'm like, but I like them. I just, I like going to games, and I, buy my stadium cup and I keep it. And now, the Astros let us refill them now, which is great. So it saves some money. But yeah, we brought cups to the last game we went to, and I still bought a new one. I don't know what it is. I like my stadium cups.
Hydration's good.
Yeah, have a whole cabinet of stadium cups. They're just multi-purpose. They make great bath for the boys, like cups, just, yeah. And I can't even tell you like all the memories associated with them. Just, I like them, so I keep them.
Good.
It's no bedazzled Yoda shirt though. So Schuller used Jeremiah's image of the potter and the clay to ask a sharp question. How often does the church put energy into preserving things that we know are no longer working, instead of allowing God to reshape them? The potter does not throw away the clay when it begins to fall apart. The potter reworks it into something new. In the same way, transformation does not mean abandoning the church's identity or discarding everything that came before it. It means trusting that God is still shaping the church for faithfulness in the present moment, in the same care that makes us want to preserve what has mattered, can also help us ask how that good work might take new shape. Where have you seen churches sometimes keep spoiled clay spinning because stopping or reshaping it feels uncomfortable?
Yeah, so one of the churches I served had some events that would be good, that were traditional things. I've long been a fan of sometimes you give up what's good and to have what's best. And I think what would happen at this church sometimes is we would give up what's best for comfort, because we would cancel a worship service to accommodate a thing. The thing was good. I don't think it was best. And that was a struggle. And, it's a fight that I would fight annually. And I would lose that fight every year. And to contrast that with another church I served, we got into a habit for a while where quarterly we would cancel all but one service, pick a new time that day, so that every service would gather together. And so you would give up what kept you comfortable in your service because everybody's together. But we gave up something good to have something that was best.
Yeah.
And so the joy being in front of a service like that was getting to look out in the congregation and see people who hadn't seen each other since they were in small groups together, because they missed each other on Sundays, because we just, you had too many folks to get everyone together that often. But for me, that's just an example of sometimes you hang on to a thing so dearly, you can't engage with another thing that will get you what you really want, that's truly aligned with the values that you have, because you're just not ready to not hold on to the thing.
Yeah. For me, and I've seen it across many churches that I've served, but it's just like really good things, inherently good things, that just for whatever reason, just not working. And so it's hard for us to give up a good thing because it's a good thing and we can make it work, right? We can fit this, and like well-meaning, but sometimes I think we can hold on to it just for the sake of it being good and miss out on anything else that might be best.
Yeah.
What are some examples of ministries, habits, systems that maybe once have served a purpose, were good, but maybe now need to be rethought?
This one, our whole existence is a result of rethinking how things need to be. Um, and so that's something that I use this anytime I'm in a class or a larger group or doing something with the conference or the district. I continually call us spoiled. There's a particular pastor at another church who always checks in on me by saying, "How are the spoiled people at Mosaic doing?" Um, so I kind of feel like we're born of this. We saw systems at work that we didn't like or approve of or feel were right, and so we decided we're going to go grab what's best and do that thing. And so I think one of the things that we do well, and one of the personal points of joy for me is I love liturgy. For me, I always take very literally the idea that liturgy is the work of the people. And when you have traditional liturgies, you can memorize them just by being in attendance for a long time. And sometimes in memorizing those things, those words get a little bit numb because it's reflexive. But what I love that we get to do is having the kids in service forces us then to rewrite those liturgies. So we get to retain that tradition of speaking together and believing together, and we don't change our beliefs or thoughts, but like we force ourselves to, embody those liturgies in a new way. And, that's not something we did just because we wanted something new to do. It's like, here's like a functional reason why we have to do this. Like we're passing on these traditions we have by changing a thing. We're keeping that tradition alive for these kids that are pre-literate, um, and perhaps those who don't have it memorized, but are getting too old to see the words well anymore. It speaks into our values of inclusion and authenticity that way, right? So that's something that I have enjoyed getting to be a part of since we've planted. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a safe space and a brave space. Don't come after me. But my answer to this question is Sunday school. And I have fond memories of Sunday school. I have a Sunday school teacher who, like, after that became a mentor to me and, like, helped me through a lot of things. And that's because of Sunday school. But I've just also been around enough churches to see that model kind of grow old and stale and not be reimagined or revamped. And people wonder why there's not the same enthusiasm around Sunday school as there used to be back in the day. And so I just think that the idea of Sunday school isn't necessarily bad. I just think it just needs to be refreshed and rethought. And I think the experience and the lessons and the impact that some of us have had in Sunday school is still out there to be had. We just need to change our approach, I think. So don't come after me. I'm not saying Sunday school is bad. I just think in some situations it could be reimagined. And I mean, honestly, we have had to reimagine it because of our situation as a plant church and meeting in a middle school. So currently at Mosaic do not have a traditional Sunday school program. And I think that's great. I think we've adapted and we found ways to make the impact in new ways that fit our context and are appropriate and make sense for us. Yeah. Why can ending or changing something feel like failure when it may actually be faithfulness?
I think we misconstrue endings and failings. You can continually fail at a thing. and just keep failing. Um, and I think endings are difficult because sometimes we don't have the closure we want with them. And so I think sometimes endings can feel like failings in that sense, but I think there's also a real sense of when something started, it was doing well. It served its purpose. And we carry that memory of when it was serving its purpose. And through no fault of anyone, it's changed. That's not to fault to the thing, but it's just this idea that ministry fields change. If you look at your example of Sunday schools, I'm going to be really generous to my age and say our generation was a different generation than Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
Teaching those kids. My older children look at the younger children and think that they're nuts because, like, generationally, things are driving that quickly. And so just ministry fields change. I look at the neighborhood that I live in, and we've been there, we're coming up on 15 years. And when we moved in, we were disruption because we had little kids. And the neighbors, I think on our right, had just moved their last kids out of the house. And they had finally like leveled up into the empty nesters. And that was true of everybody around us. And then here we come. And we're there for the first 2 weeks. And I remember telling Patty, my wife, we're the outliers. Like, it's been 2 weeks. We couldn't spot those people.
We are those people.
It's us. And we look at it now, and it could have been easy for me to get frustrated, but there were moving trucks behind my driveway the other day because we've got a young guy that was a youth at one of my former churches who's no longer active military, who's moving into his grandmother's house. And I knew his grandmother from church. Their house backs up to another house that has been recently moved into. One of my former students, also from that same church, they've got a little guy at home. They've got another one on the way, and the whole neighborhood is like bustling.
Yeah.
The place has changed. And it's not that, you know, when you think about as a church serving a community, that has nothing to do with what happened inside your doors or walls or your decision making. Just stuff changes, and we have to be able to recognize that things are just different, and the stuff that was awesome and worked awesome for then, and it's not for now because these new kids are nuts. We got to be nuts with them and just do the thing. And so it's hard because if you've had success, you think that ending that success, it's over. It's like, no, it's just you're giving your chance to be successful at a new thing. And so I think it's just a difficult mindset when we stop a thing. It feels like, well, that's dead and done. Like, no, we're making way for the new life that we want to cultivate now.
Yeah. The felt board is not going to connect with kids the same way as it did when we were in Sunday school. So how can we still remain open to transformation while still honoring this good that came before us?
Yeah, so I think it's built in that linear progression for me. We can recognize that we have done good work and that we need to continue to do good work. And so it's almost, if you're valuing both, the transformation becomes necessary, right? It's not an independent thing. And I think sometimes that's where we got caught up. We being a global statement, it's we need to transform, or we need to innovate, or we need to fill in the blank. And we start looking at innovation and change for its own sake as being the thing. And it isn't. Particularly in the church, the point is fruitful ministry. And if you exist in a particular time and a place, fruitfulness is going to look like one thing. The outcome doesn't change, right? And that's a thing that we need to be clear in all of this, and why I like the creed so much. what we believe doesn't shift. Our goalpost of making disciples of Christ doesn't shift. Those things are fixed objects. What changes is that strategy of how that happens. How do we keep new life happening? And so, if we are firm in our foundational beliefs and we are firm in what we say is the wind of the church, and then we task ourselves with being successful disciple makers, the transformation is just symptomatic of us being committed to the traditional mission of the church. And so I think, that's an easy way to have transformation be sort of part of the life of the church. I mean, it doesn't become one of your traditions. It's not a fixed thing that's happening, but if you continue to be a living thing for Christ in your community, then transformation and change are necessary. They will happen. And I think the onus is also on us to look and see our success as continual. And you get to thank people. That's why I loved Senior Sunday so much. For those kids, everything feels like so much closure. And so for us, we're looking at them, it's like, oh, you babies are just getting started. But to hear them speak so highly of the work that Christy has done is phenomenal. And so I think we need to be better as church leaders at speaking to the people that have come before us. While we were setting up cameras and lights, I mentioned a woman who's no longer with us named Margaret Warren. And I love her dearly. And so she's a saint, and she was so influential for us. And she was an amazing artist. And so we do have Christmas ornaments. And so that is a traditional thing that goes on our tree. It serves a function, so it doesn't serve as a response to your question from earlier, because that's one of those things where it's like, this is a way that we honor this saint. And because of the work she did, I get to do this work now. And I get to trust that if I'm faithful in doing that work of transforming and curating the church as is now, then the young people who come up behind me will continue that work forward. And so if anyone ever chooses to honor my legacy, mine was first planted in people like Margaret Warren, who made that investment in someone like me first.
So Jeremiah warns the people not to hide behind the temple while ignoring the kind of life God is calling them to live. The temple is truly sacred, but the people have begun treating the existence of the temple as proof that everything is fine. That raises a question for the church today. Do we sometimes make things sacred that don't deserve that status? A sanctuary can be meaningful, a tradition, a room, a way of doing things may hold deep memories for us. But does no coffee in the sanctuary deserve the same seriousness as hospitality, worship, or care for people? A certain order of service, room setup, a building custom, ministry format may matter to us, but that doesn't automatically make it holy. So what kind of things do we see churches sometimes treat as sacred that may actually be like preference or habit or just kind of a local custom?
Yeah, to be clear, coffee is the lifeblood that fuels the dreams of champions. Maybe not quite sacred, but it would be a sad Sunday without it. Although typically I don't drink any until after service. That's a different issue. One of the things that I think that churches mistake as sacred, honestly, is music. There are people, and you can tell by looking in the congregation, for whom music is like a nearly sacramental experience. And then there are absolutely people in our midst every Sunday for whom music is just the speed bump on the way to the message and getting to lunch. Like
one of them's on our staff.
Yeah. Wasn't going to name names.
I didn't, but we all know.
And it's just one of those things where I think we have to be respectful of some of those things. And again, it keeps coming back to function for me. And I think there, that's where some debate comes in, where you can look at it, it's like, well, here's the thing, music, deeply important to me, massively important to some people, and some people it just isn't.
Yeah.
Just isn't. And I can't get offended at that because, like, I recognize that people are different than me all the time. And so you have to start making value judgments on, well, if this isn't serving those people in the same way it serves these other people, it's like, where's the tipping point in this? But I do think in balancing those tensions, I feel like in terms of viewing the life of the church and, remaining committed to the bedrock, still aiming for the same goalposts, and how we move, it should temper my enthusiasm for what I consider the sacred. Because if there's good people here doing good work that don't view those same things as sacred that I do, maybe they're not quite as special in the life of the church as I want them to be. And I want it to be because it's so important to me. But maybe, if I'm being honest, okay, if it was universally important, it would be universally important. And maybe just not everything is. Kind of stings, especially if you hold something dear. But I think there's just some stuff we love. And so we want everyone to love it so much because we just love it.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to something I mentioned earlier. Like sometimes, like these things that that might be labeled as sacred to people, and it feels like, why is that so sacred? Some of these things are birthed out of good things and good intentions. Like the whole coffee in the sanctuary example. It's a pretty prevalent one across church history, I think. Not like forever church history, but like since I was born. But like it's birthed out of like, we want to care for this room and we want it to be nice and last for generations. Like, and that's a good thing. Like good stewardship of our space is a good thing, and it's a worthwhile endeavor. But when it gets to the point where it comes at the expense of hospitality and grace and welcome, that's when we go, okay, we might need to bring back the dial a little bit, because we want to be hospitable. And people want to enjoy their coffee while they're enjoying their Jesus, So, and I think we're blessed to meet in a cafeteria, so we don't have to worry about it. But
yeah, it's made for food.
It's made for food. So what is the difference between reverence and rigidity?
I'm editing. I think sometimes in the life of the church, rigidity can cosplay as reverence, because we want to hold on to a thing. And we've got our security blankets. And so we want to present as reverent and solemn and respectful. But really, it's just us not being willing to move. Dr. Seuss wrote a story about the Zaxes, the north-going Zax and the south-going Zax, and they meet in their tracks, and then they build the overpass around them and all that. And that is something, it's a children's story that's on my mind a lot through my years in church work. And it's like, as an example, and maybe it's just a confession of pettiness, but I had two highly devoted servants at one of my churches, and one was convicted that there was a particular color that should be dominant at Advent. And there was another that was convinced that the other. And there was no settling this. And so I got to a point where I told him, whoever makes the first wreath of the year gets to pick the color. And there was a ton of work associated with getting decorated for Advent. So it's a commitment, right? Because if they brought me the thing, like, they were going to be in charge. A lot of work. But every year, somebody would step up because they wanted their color. And so we would just do it based on that. There's no win, there's no function to that, but we know we're decorating, and so we're just doing this thing. But to a degree, it broke up the rigidity because the colors were going to change depending on who was in town or who had the grandkids or who had what going on. And so I think really a lot of these conversations come back to competing values. I think sometimes we take our personal priorities and put them at the top of everyone else's priorities. And for me, part of our lives as disciples is to recognize that we have a perfect creator. We ourselves are imperfect. And when we find ourselves in conflict, we're the ones who are out of phase. To a lesser degree, I'm not putting this on the same footing, but to a lesser degree, I feel like when we have conflicting values, we need to be honest with ourselves and say, are my values in this thing in line with what the church values for this thing? And when they're out of alignment, maybe I put my personal value in line with the church's values because I trust that we're moving in the right direction as a church. And as much as thing A, B, or C might sting me personally because it's not what I want, I recognize it's getting us as a church what we need. And so, but I also recognize the human difficulty in doing that. And to make claims that I'm perfect in executing that is not accurate either. I think we're all works in progress there. And I'm with you where I think a lot of these things come from places with good intentions behind them.
Yeah.
And just sometimes we just people it up along the way.
Absolutely. So Schuler's sermon ends with a subtle but powerful shift in posture. Instead of responding to new ideas with, well, we've always done it this way, what if the church learned to say, we've never done it this way? Some key inflections that have to go along with that. But what if we approached it with curiosity rather than fear? Transformation doesn't require chasing novelty for novelty's sake. It requires paying attention, evaluating honestly, and being willing to try, fail, and learn, and follow where God is moving. If our traditions were born from people faithfully responding to God in their time, then honoring that legacy maybe sometime means showing the same courage and imagination in ours. Schuler suggested evaluating ministries by asking whether they are creating transformation and living into the church's mission and values. How can that question or these questions reshape our church decision making?
Yeah, I mean, the knee jerk is easy, is why we exist.
Yeah.
I mean, here we are.
Here we are.
We pretty aggressively questioned and made decisions based on that. I mean, that's what I like about the way we've done things. Any church mission statement that's good is simply a restating of the Great Commission to start with. And so we've got this one end goal if we've done the work right. And if we're committed to that, it gives us an easy place to aim for. And it's that discipline coupled with kind of self-evaluation and honesty. It's like to ask the question and then assess whether or not you're really living into the way that you want to answer that question. And yeah, I mean, it can just, the how of that is just almost to me infinite at that point because you've got so many different giftings within the church. And I think that's sometimes where those competitions of values come from because you've got so many people with so many gifts and so many ideas and only so many hours in the week to execute all of them, And so again, with us being spoiled where we are, it's sort of, we've got so many people that we can put to work. And, you could almost just throw a ring out and like whoever catches it, we'll go with your idea. And then it's just the rest of us need to get in line and support it. There's just so much that we can do because I think we're so grounded in who we are and why we're here to do the work that we do. And sadly, I think those of us on staff have served in churches where that was not a thing, where maybe fear of judgment kept us from getting there. Maybe we just didn't want the conflict that comes with the change that we need in order to get where we need to go. But I think that we've got just this entrepreneurial spirit at Mosaic that lets us listen to good ideas. And the idea isn't like, what are we going to do? It's like, which one are we going to do? Like, and then just deciding and then going and doing.
Yeah, I think some people might say, well, yeah, it's easy to have that approach when you're newer, right? Like sometimes, I learned in ministry, like, an established big ship takes a long time to turn around. But the lesson we can learn in that is that, yes, when we try something new, we get to be flexible. We get to be more nimble and be on our toes. And so we can take that same lesson in how Mosaic was started and apply it to our ministries and to our ideas and things that we're starting and things that we're evaluating. Is that maybe sometimes the new thing is going to allow us to be more flexible and move and reach new places. Well, speaking of flexibility and things we've never done before, Eric and I have just spoken so long that the memory cards on the cameras have completely maxed out. And so here we are 2 days later, picking up where we left off. So, I think we left off here is what can it look like for a church culture to become more comfortable saying, let's try it and see where God moves?
Yeah, so a phrase that I've always been a big fan of, it hasn't always gone well in every staff culture, is freedom to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a thing that I've always enjoyed asking on job interviews. Because to me, that's where progress comes from. I think we tend to think of failure in terms of finality and things being over, but really it's, if we know we've got good end goals, if we have a failure, what we've got is refinement. Mm-hmm. And, there's plenty of verbiage in the church about, refining and getting rid of the dross, great hymnody words. And so what we've got is these opportunities of like, well, we know distinctly if a thing does not work, our goal's not bad. But if this thing doesn't work, let's refine this thing until it enables us to then reach that goal that we've been shooting for all along. So with that, it's sort of what I pray all the time before Sunday services is that our job is just to show up and say a holy yes. If we're confident that God is calling us into the right things, then we need to do our best to stay out of God's way in this and just be the mechanics through which the Spirit gets to work. And sometimes we get that wrong. I mean, why we're preaching the series. We get that wrong sometimes, but we have to have the humility to recognize that and then like, all right, we've messed up. We need to change. How do we go do that? And at that point, you get to thank your failures later because they taught you how to move forward and do better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the most healthy staffs I've been on and honestly the most enjoyable ministries that I've been a part of working with have been in places that absolutely said, yes, try something and then fail if it happens, but then just learn from it and take whatever you learn and put it into whatever you do next. One of my stops along my way was a church that just absolutely embraced me trying anything and everything. And I spent probably 3 of my 5 years there trying something and failing, trying something and failing, trying something and failing. And then lo and behold, like things just started to click and fall in place. And so I'm really thankful for that experience, not only for all that I learned, but that the church learned alongside with me, and was able to really grow not only in the areas that I was working, but when like one ministry you see doing this, it kind of like opens the door for other ministry areas to be like, oh, we can try and fail something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes part of the church culture as a whole. And I think there's nothing more healthy than being able to do that as a church. So where have you seen the church get transformation right? And do you have any specific examples that you can think of?
I mean, I'm going to keep falling back on us.
Sure.
I mean, this is why we do it. We bet on ourselves. The United Methodist Church clearly has been invested in doing better and getting it right. I mean, the biggest thing when I saw this question was, the United Methodist Church that we have now is not the United Methodist Church that I grew up with, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean that the United Methodist Church that I grew up with, I need to be angry at. It doesn't mean that all of those great things that I brought out of it that formed me and brought me to now are bad or gone or something that we need to dismiss. It's just, no, we thought we had it. We recognized we can do this better. And then we had the audacity to actually do that. And I love that. And so every Sunday that we get to gather and be together and I get to look out there, it's just that reminder. It's like, oh, we tried and we got it right. Good for us. Let's keep getting together on Sundays and saying, good for us. We're allowed to celebrate this and revel in it.
Yeah. Well, preservation is not bad. The church needs memory. It needs practices that anchor us to the story of God and the wisdom of those who came before us. But the church gets it wrong when preservation becomes the goal instead of faithfulness. Sometimes the most faithful thing we can do is keep going. Sometimes the most faithful thing we could do is to release and reshape and begin again. The same love that makes us grateful for what has been can also make us attentive to what God may be forming now. The question is not simply, what have we always done, but what is God forming in us now? Well, that's all for this episode. Next week, we tackle performance versus authenticity, and thriving versus surviving in relationships and life. This has been Faith in Pieces. We are building our faith together, piece by piece, story by story. We'll see you next time.
Not to be a firm traditionalist, pawn shot first.